note that you are a former Director of Communications to Mr. Harper, and you worked at the National Post, and now you've been a long-term Member of Parliament for New Brunswick Southwest. What's your connection to Mr. Murphy, please?
So I got to know Rex about 8 years ago, as he was writing more and more, and as well, Rex was often on the speaking circuit across the country. He was, I think, a draw pretty much anywhere he went. So I both had a chance to get to know Rex a little bit, but also frequently bumped into him at speaking engagements across the country.
I'm wondering, as a man who was born in Newfoundland before it became Canada, and who went to be a Rhodes Scholar and then hosted many shows on VOCM, on CBC, and then the National Post, was there a secret, do you think, to Rex's connection with Canada? Or, you know, for someone who was born at the far side in Carbonear and then...
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's one that it's worth pondering. What is it that gave Rex an insight, I think, to Canadians across this country? I've had more than one friend from Western Canada say that even though Rex was not from the West, he understood the West's aspirations as if he'd been born and bred there. And that's unique, given his upbringing on the other side of the country and born before Newfoundland Labrador was even part of Canada. And I think part of it, of course, comes from his own upbringing. There's no doubt that Rex understood the boom and bust of the resource economy. It certainly affected Newfoundland Labrador. I think Rex was also grateful for the opportunities that Western Canada and the resource sector offered his fellow countrymen in time of need. And Rex told me one time that it impacts you when you come across a grown man who's crying because he can't provide for his family. So Rex understood the strength of this country was intertwined with the resource sector because it gave people work, and Rex understood the importance, the dignity of work. So, and I think as well, Rex, as host of Cross Country Checkup for so many years, he listened to Canadians, something that we in this building could probably do a lot more of, I think, because when you listen to people, you understand their values, you understand their hopes, and you understand their disappointment. And there's no doubt that Rex enjoyed talking to people, but I think in that position he was able to get a collection of Canadians every week from across the country who just talked about life as Canadians.
It's not on me to say, to opine on Newfoundlanders and their love of politics and their knowledge of politics, but as Mr. Murphy ran for, if I recall, the Progressive Conservatives in Newfoundland, then switched to be a provincial Liberal staffer, and then migrated perhaps to a Conservative vision near the time, the last 10 years before his passing. Do you see an understanding of how Mr. Murphy understood politics and perhaps practiced politics himself in his columns? It's sort of a he's been many things.
It's a riddle, because was it 20 years ago he identified Pierre Elliott Trudeau as one of the country's greatest individuals, statesmen or otherwise. In more recent years, he has done nothing but skewer Justin Trudeau. So, you know, and for someone who has been critical of the government and its opposition, I think, to the resource economy, he remained a Canadian patriot as well as a patriot of his home province as well. And so, you know, I think at its core, as I said in my statement today, he believed Canada was a country of good. It did great things. Its founding principles were just and noble. It had done things in its history, and he felt again its best days were ahead, and the country should continue to do great things going forward.
Now, we're practicing television right now. The first 15, 16 years of my life were spent in radio, and for a lot of people, hearing the old synthesizers Cross Country Checkup and his voice evokes things. Is there a memory that when you perhaps from his time in radio, when you close your eyes and you hear the voice, it evokes something? Or I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it's a thing, right?
I think we've all had a chance to reflect on that in the last 24 hours. Coming into Parliament today, I heard on the radio Rex's monologue about the moose in Newfoundland Labrador and how the moose even scared off those wimpy Vikings back in the day. I mean, the man was a storyteller. And he was someone who had so many stories. So of course I think it's going to be difficult for all of us to pinpoint the one that was the favorite. But I think you're right. I think for millions of Canadians, his voice, the cadence, his speaking style does speak. I think it is very much Canadian in terms of he was always curious and inquisitive to understand the ordinary struggles of ordinary people.
I guess I'd end with the things on my mind before I ask if I missed anything. What was your reaction with you and your caucus when you heard the news? I mean, I saw it on an alert around 8 p.m. from a colleague who was quoting the National Post. So yeah, what did you think?
To be honest, I had a very busy day yesterday in public accounts, and then I got out of here. I actually didn't even hear of it until late last night. So this is sometimes how the news cycle works here. When we finally get out of here, we just put our phones aside if we're lucky and pray the whip's office doesn't call us. So having said that, I know that my leader Pierre Poilievre was eager for a statement. He vowed to make one Monday. Of course, Parliament's not sitting Monday. I'm surprised actually Pierre's not pushing to have Parliament open so he can make that statement. So I was pleased to step in today and make a statement on behalf of my caucus members, and I think it was well received on both sides of the House today.
Is there anything I've missed? I've tried to cover a bunch of subjects there, but
no. I think he was a great Canadian, and I think Rex is going to be missed. I think he touched an awful lot of Canadians. He always fought for working Canadians, but in particular those who were going through a rough time. What we might call the respectable working poor, that Canadian who gets up every day, goes out, does the job, and comes in at the end of the day and says, job well done. He never lost sight of their importance to this whole magnificent country. And I think you could see that both in his speeches and in his writings.
Thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Rex had a way of making us think about the issues that were happening across our country in a way that was deeply thoughtful, but also was lighthearted and made you laugh. And his voice is going to be deeply missed in Canada. He was really part of the fabric of the culture of this country. And not being able to hear his take on the events of the day is something I think we're all going to miss.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Good morning, Minister Duclos. Any thoughts on Rex Murphy's passing? What was his contribution to Canada?
Well, it's a very significant contribution. We'll certainly remember his life and his contribution to Canada and build on the basis of that memory.
What did you think of his opinions on this?
Well, we live in a free country where opinions are not only important but need to be voiced. And I think it's a sign that our democracy, our freedom of speech are strong in Canada, and we look forward to building on that.